Right, having had a test sail, or two of them, I can tell you a little bit about the rig now, a little bit whether it made any difference or didn't make any difference. And it certainly didn't make any difference to the sail. So what differences did it make? Well, I'll talk you through them. The first time I got out after setting the rigging, there wasn't a lot of wind, but I put the sails up anyway. If you look at the foot of the sail, it's got a bit of a bag in it at the moment. Well, there you go, it's perfect now. That's how I want it to be. And I want that little 1-inch gap between the sail and the spreader as well. But unfortunately, it's me doing it by pulling the sheet backwards. When I let the sheet go forward again, it baggies up the bottom of the sail and rests the top of it on the spreader. No use nor ornament. You can see the car is at the end of its track and it ain't go any further back than that. And I don't want it resting on there. And I've got to do something about that. The foot becomes lovely when I pull it in, but that's a huge bag at the moment and you can't see how baggy it is until you actually take it out. There you go, that's the sail pulled where it needs to be. It's massive. It's a huge bit of bag in the bottom of it and it lifts that spreader away as well. Two things conquered in one go by moving the sheet backwards. I play around with it for a bit, watching the speed over the ground. If I don't change tack and hopefully the wind don't change, I pull it in and see what happens and I let it go and see what happens. And there's a definite increase in speed when it's pulled backwards. It might only be 0.2 of a knot, but you can guarantee that will be a difference. And I'm only doing 2 knots anyway, so that's 10%, and 10% is quite decent. In fact, it's an extra 10 miles on 100. Now it's very decent. I've let the helm go, going into a couple of knots of wind, and it is only a couple of knots of wind, but it's enough to move the boat. But unfortunately, I've got lee helm. Now you can see by the flag there isn't much wind, and I'm not happy having lee helm, and I don't know now whether it's the sail or the fact that I've moved the forestay forward a notch. It's probably the forestay going forward a notch. But I still do have the question of the sail, and would that sort it out or not? I don't know. When I look at the telltales, the top and the middle one set quite well, although that one's stuck on the cotton. The bottom telltale drops away a lot, and that says to me that I need to pull the bottom back a little bit as well. And when I pull it back, it pulls the telltale into place. So it's almost confirming that it needs to come backwards to flatten. Still in all, the ears might be too light for me to make any real judgments. I probably want about 14-15 knots to make a real judgment. As this kink, and there's not enough wind to take the kink out maybe, it could be just the weight of a sail needing a bit more air to fill. However, I still do have trouble filling it and making it shape, even when I think there's enough wind. See that kink there? Well, I can take it out just by doing that. A little bit of magic. All I've done is pinched 6 inches of sail back. But why have I got 6 inches of sail there to pinch back? I think I'm actually starting to go nuts with this problem. I can't see the trees for the woods. I know as soon as I see it, it's going to become so obvious in one go that why I haven't spotted that I don't know. Well, I continue to play around and I continue to say to myself, the track's just not long enough on my deck for the sail. And that's definitely going to be the answer. So I've got to look for other shortcuts. Areas that I think might need altering to get rid of this kink. Well, I don't like this one for the start. The bolt rope here is about a foot too long, sticks out and twists the sail at this point, so I don't suppose that helps at all. And this long shackle that I've got on here doesn't allow me to pull the sail right the way down. So I was figuring if I fitted a smaller shackle to here, say one only an inch long or so, I could get the sail down by 2 inches-ish maybe even 3 inches. And if I can do that, then that might bring the sheeting angle a little bit further forward on the track or where it hits the track, and hopefully then maybe the track will become useful. And this really isn't a hard alteration to do. I just end up losing my snap shackle. Well, let the Genoa halyard go. Give that a yank. That's the one. And that'll free the Genoa up a bit. Well, too much obviously. Big bag in the bottom of it now. But plenty of area to work with, and it's easy enough to move back up. Well, I don't know if it's a clever thing at all, but there you go, a small shackle. It's brought it down a couple of inches, and that couple of inches obviously brings the track at the other end forward a couple of inches, or I'm thinking it might do. And all I've done is swap the big snap shackle for an ordinary D shackle. Well, I want to go out and test it. We've got a fair breeze to test in, 17, 18 knots of wind. I'm sitting on the mooring at the moment, and this is just blowing on the nose. So 20 knots, 21 knots, that's a good test sail. So, do you know what, up and off I go. Wind behind me, pushing me down the river. Nice and calm. The tide's coming in, and the wind's going out. And the wind's a bit stronger than the tide at the moment, so it's shoving me along quite happily against it, with just the genoa up. I've almost forgot I'm going out for a test sail, and I'm just starting to enjoy it instead, not paying attention to what the job is at hand. There's a lot of eddies just ahead of me, where the river's at its narrowest, deepest point. Did you hear that whistle? That's Alan over there on the shore, waving away. He's asking if I'm going out for a sail. I think that means he's going to join me. He'll have to get a move on though, because I'm only going out for a test sail. Now, as I sail up to these eddies, the water turns every way in them, but you can almost see it running on the surface quite quickly in one go. Well, it'll grab the front of the keel before it grabs the back of it, and when it grabs the front of the keel, it'll turn the boat to port quite quickly, and you'll be able to see it. There she goes now. Look at the land moving. As soon as the whole keel's in the running water, my steerage comes back and I can start straightening the boat back up. So there's no real panic in a place like this. That is, as long as you've got enough drive. And we've got 20 odd knots of wind, about 22 knots of wind just here. So that's plenty of drive for us to push us through it. By the way, I think it's me steering today. I've not been bothered with the wind vane or the auto helm. Now I've turned to port a little bit. The wind's not behind me, and it's a little bit stronger, so I've put a couple of turns in it, about 3 turns on the foil. The shape of the sail at this particular point is absolutely beautiful. She's a faultless sail. The wind's on my port beam, maybe a tad after it, and she's 26 knots, fairly steady on that. We're making excellent headway, and the car is right at the end of the track. I can't get her any further back, but that sets the sail in a reef position perfect. And don't forget, that's after we've pulled the sail down an inch or two in the foil as well. Well, the wind's going to play havoc in a little bit. I know that from past experience because it's coming over these mountains, which means it's going to pick up and slow down. So I'll put another curl in the foresail and just play it safe, I think. And here comes Mayru, coming out to join me for a little sail, I think. Obviously wants to get in the fluky stuff with me. The way his foresail empties and fills, he must be just on pinching there. But he's pinching and going, and that's all that matters. And there he went. At least I got a wave, and a wave back. Well, I still don't trust the wind. So I open up my mainsail a little bit, but keep it well reefed, and I keep my reef in the foresail, and I keep my mainsail paid out a little bit. Not making much speed here, 1.7, 1.6, 1.5. So I'm just about getting through the water. The air has dropped, and Mayru's let all her foresail out, and she don't look like she's flying anymore. So I think the air's running out a bit here. It's not a bit further out because there's white water, and white water's screaming along under full sail. Well, we seem to be getting a little bit close to Mayru, so I think she's parked and stopped. She still looks like she's sailing, but she doesn't look like she's moving anymore. She's obviously in one of those hollows I expect to get, and after the hollow I expect to get a gust. I feel a little bit balanced anyway, both sails well reefed, and I feel like I'm ready to take the gust should it come down. Well, I think he's lost steerage. He's going round in a circle. Still looks like he's got air on the port side of his boat, which is well strange. And it's back on the port side of his boat even when he's facing the other way. I can't work that one out. I'm getting a feeling of deja vu about now. Well, he's obviously decided there's no wind at all because he's unzipped that stack pack and he's already got his full foresail out. So if that main's going up and a gust's coming, he's gonna have some fun. I'm just about ready to turn to starboard after this red boy and have a little sail towards Puffin Island and see what the wind does for me. Well, no sooner do I turn and the wind fills in. Just what I expected, really. These stays, the leeward ones, I checked them and they're all nice and tight. I don't like floppy stays, so 10%'s enough with 20 odd knots of wind and both sails up to keep the mast upright and the leeward stays taut still. It's about now I begin to realise something I hadn't contemplated before. It's just dawned on me. The boat goes as fast in one tack as it does in the other. It also heels about the same, and it also goes about the same angle towards windward as well. Well, that's completely different than it was before I played around with the rig. Before playing with the rig, it definitely was a one-sided tacker. It had a favourable tack and massively as well. So I've sorted something out that I didn't even know was a problem with the rig. I suppose I must be a slow learner. I always thought it was down to the boat when there was a favourable tack, like hull shape or something like that. I now know what causes a favourable tack on a boat, and I didn't before. Well, there's too much wind to actually get a full sail out and get a good judgment on it, so that's another day. And there's Mayru following on behind. I don't like the look of that sky much. I don't think it looks very trusting. Yet there's still sun poking through it in different places, but what's coming doesn't look as good as what's gone. The wind direction isn't very constant, even if the strength is. But as I get closer to the hills, I'm quite sure the strength will change and we'll find those hollows again. But meanwhile, I'll just enjoy this sail. This extremely balanced sail. When you're punching into a little bit of a bumpy wave and the sun is creating a shadow of the sail, when the water breaks at the bow and kicks out like that, you actually see a rainbow in the spray. Now I could see it with my eyes, but I can't see it with the camera, and I find that quite funny. This one, whoosh, wait, hold on. I'll get one there. Like where that spray comes up there high, that's where the rainbow's sitting, but there's no rainbow on the camera. Shame. I think I should have paid a little bit more attention to tidying the boat just before I come out, because I've heard a couple of crashing noises while I've been tacking, and I'm sure it's not going to be good underneath that chart when I pick her up. There you go. Rick Stein's plate in bits on the floor. Lisa's going to love me. Think I'll just put her in the bin. Pretend that we only ever had 3 of them. I can see her eyebrow crawling up the top of her head when I tell her that one. The helm feels rather woolly, very light, not fighting you very much in the hand. I'll have to do something about this neutral helm as well, get my weather helm back. I think that'll mean moving my forestay a notch backwards again. Okay, let the helm go, experiment time, let's see what the bow does. Oh, it's definitely creeping a little bit round to windward. Yeah, it's definitely making it. Oh, so it has got a little bit of windward tendency, even with the helm right in the centre. So I've got to put a little bit of weather helm on to straighten myself back up, although I'm using it to turn at the moment. Mightn't be as bad as I first thought, eh? I think we'll leave the jury out on that one until we've had some more sails, and some more sails that we can get all the sail up and see what gives. You never know, with a little bit of luck, she might be a slightly faster boat, and I won't be complaining about that. Well, after a couple of hours tacking, we've learnt a few things. We've learnt about favourable tacks. I think it's time now to push on in and just enjoy the run back. As I'm arriving back, ahead of me there, coming out, there he is, Al. He took his time, didn't he? Okay, what did we learn? Well, before we go on about what we're learning, the gauge I used is made by Seashore. I'm not sure if it's called by Seashore by all the different manufacturers, but the one I've got's got Seashore written on it. They're available for about 57 quid, and you can get them at compass24.com. And this isn't an advertisement, I've just been asked where you get them from, and that's where you get them from, compass24.com. Send them to you anywhere in the world, I'm quite sure, if you ask them. Right, back to what else we've learned. Well, after setting the rig up and sailing it, I noticed the boat felt a lot more balanced. When I say balanced, I meant from tack to tack. It almost like it wanted to tack in one direction all the time. And it would have a poor tack the other way where it'd slow right down, and it'd have a poor angle, and then it would tack back the other way, and it would tack well and it'd be quick. After we adjusted the rigging, that all changed. The tacks become quite even, and I believe it was the 4 lowers. It's going to take a bit to explain, but here I go. These are my 4 lowers, and if you look at them properly, one's high, one's low, one's high, one's low. These 2 wires were highly loaded, and these 2 wires were hardly loaded at all. So I think it's fair to say the mast was actually supported tight between these 2 points, and not very secure between these 2 points. Now add some wind pressure here, and what would happen? The mast will be forced this way in the centre until the forward port lower becomes under stress. Now let's remove the wind and bring it back from the other side. The pressure again will push the mast this way until this stay takes up the tension. So where does all this have an effect? Well, it's right here in the centre of the mast. Now the top of the mast up here should be held by the forestay, the rear stay and the cap shrouds. And the bottom of the mast down here should be kept still because it's fastened to the deck. This results in the mast being allowed to bow forward in the centre or bow backwards in the centre, depending on which tack we're on. Well, I'm sure you all know if you move the mast forward, you flatten the mainsail, and if you flatten the mainsail, you depower it. And you also probably know if you move the mast aft, you create more of a draft in the mainsail and you power it up. And there's the difference in the 2 tacks. The movements only need be a couple of inches, but a couple of inches of movement makes a big influence on a sail. Talking about sails, I've been on to Sanders Sails about my Genoa. They confirmed that they produced it about 6 years ago. It wasn't made to the standard specifications that the boat require, as the owner who was ordering it decided he wanted it made larger and supplied his own specifications for them to make it by, to which they did. Well, it's been a good exercise, as in I found out the difference to tacks. I found out that my Genoa is not really any good for the boat unless I wish to add some deck tracks further aft. But I'm not sure I want such a large Genoa that it wasn't designed for either. Sanders say as well, as it's tri-radial cut, it can't be altered. It's the size that it is, so it's more or less for the bin. I'll have to think long and hard what I want to do with it now, but at least on a plus side, I'm not going nuts and I'm not missing anything. I've checked everything that I needed to, and I was quite right in thinking the sail's too big for the boat. Unless I alter the boat, which I don't want to. If you've watched all the way to now, thank you very much, and I'll see you again in my next vlog. Bye for now.